For 15 years of marriage, I had always tried to hold things together. I swallowed my pride, even when I was belittled and humiliated in front of others, just because I believed that someday he would change. But I was wrong. On our anniversary, right in front of friends, family, and colleagues, my husband looked me in the eye, raised his glass, and declared, "15 years is more than enough. I want someone younger." The room fell silent. As for me, I simply took the microphone and said one sentence, just one, that shut him up completely and made sure he would never dare lift his head again. I walked into the restaurant, bathed in a soft golden glow, where the air was filled with white flowers and flickering glass candles. It was my 40th birthday. I was wearing a simple black dress that fit just right. It wasn't glamorous, but it made me feel confident. Then again, I didn't think I needed to impress anyone anymore. At 40, I had nothing left to prove. The room was already quite full with friends, colleagues, a few of Liam's relatives, and some business associates I barely knew. Still, I smiled, greeted everyone, and thanked each person for their kind wishes. One of my closest friends came over, raised her glass, and looked at me with warmth in her eyes. She wished me a happy birthday and told me I looked beautiful and youthful. I smiled and told her truthfully that I felt like I was in the best place I had ever been. I told her I understood myself more clearly than ever, that I knew what I needed and what I wanted. I said I no longer chased things that didn't matter. Everything felt clear now. Before I could finish, Liam walked over. He slipped his arm around my shoulders. It used to feel like love, that simple gesture. But this time, I could feel it for what it really was. It wasn't tenderness. It was control. He said, half joking and half serious, that I must really know what I want. Just like that gift she gave me last week. Before I could respond, he reached into the pocket of his blazer and pulled out a watch. It was the vintage watch I had wrapped in velvet and handed to him myself. The only thing I had left from my father. He held it up toward the group gathered nearby and began to speak. He said it was an old watch. He reminded everyone that he had always preferred modern things, something younger, more stylish, and built with the latest technology. And yet, I had given him an antique. Then he laughed. But the way he laughed sent a chill straight through me. He said maybe I was becoming outdated too. For a moment, I couldn't move. The air in the room felt heavy, like it had stopped flowing. The laughter around us trailed off. All eyes turned to me. Some looked uncomfortable. Some were curious. Others stared down at their drinks as if they hadn't heard a thing. I straightened my shoulders. I told him it was my father's watch. He once said he admired him. I thought it would mean something. Liam just waved a hand, let out a dry laugh, and turned his back. He said the only meaning it had was to remind him that everything eventually grows old and gets forgotten. Then he turned to the crowd and told everyone not to let the mood get too heavy, said we should all just enjoy ourselves. And then he left me standing there. I don't clearly remember how I reacted in that moment. All I know is that my heart was pounding in a strange, unfamiliar way. It wasn't because I felt hurt. It was because, for the first time in my life, I realized I was finally seeing the true face of the man who once promised to love me forever. I don't know what changed him, but I could feel it. Something between us had truly broken, and I wasn't sure it could ever be put back together again. That night, I sat in my study. Outside, a light rain was falling. The soft tapping sound felt like it was knocking on something inside me, stirring a vague sense of unease I couldn't quite name. I opened my laptop, thinking I would finish up a few unfinished design drafts. But then a notification from the bank popped up in the corner of the screen, and I froze. I opened the statement for our joint account, just to check our spending habits this month, like I always did. Only this time, my eyes stopped at two unusually large transactions. I murmured to myself, Le Jardin, $500, last Tuesday. I didn't go out that day, did I? I was clearly home, alone, eating salad and sipping half a glass of wine before going to bed early. I scrolled further. $1,200 at Tiffany, jewelry. But there wasn't a single new piece in my drawer. I typed a message to Liam. Hey, love. Do you remember this charge at Le Jardin? I don't recall us dining there. 15 minutes passed. He replied, Oh, that was with a client. Forgot to mention it. No big deal. Don't make a fuss. I paused for a few seconds. What kind of client dines at a fancy French restaurant and orders wine worth hundreds of dollars? And why couldn't he just say that from the start? I sent another message. And the jewelry from Tiffany? This time, he replied almost instantly. The message came so fast, it felt like he had it prepared in advance. Of course, the jewelry was meant to be a gift for you, but I've changed my mind. I don't think you deserve it anymore. You nitpick over every dollar like some kind of miser. I put the phone down. My chest tightened. It wasn't his words that hurt the most. It was the coldness behind them. I stood up and walked to the safe against the wall, the place where I kept my most important things. My hands trembled slightly as I turned the dial. The door clicked open. I pulled out a stack of old documents, neatly kept inside a brown folder. I looked at the yellowed pages. Numbers, signatures, and dates from 15 years ago. I picked up one sheet and read it in silence. Purchase agreement, 2008. Buyer, Maya Davis. The full amount of $1.2 million had been transferred from my inheritance account, the money my mother left me. I held the papers a little tighter in my hand. Then I looked up at the family photo on the desk. My mother was still smiling inside the wooden frame, her gentle face looking at me as if she were still here. I whispered, as if she were sitting across from me, listening to every word. Mom, you gave me this apartment to be my anchor. I tried to turn it into a home, but now, the man I love calls me a miser. A single tear slid down my cheek and landed on the old contract. I used to believe I was a loving wife, someone who shared, who endured. But now, in his eyes, I'm just a woman who watches every penny, someone undeserving of respect. I never once thought about holding it over him. Not once did I mention that this apartment was mine. I only wanted him to see it as our home, where love could grow instead of being left behind and forgotten. But maybe I was wrong to think that love didn't need to be spoken out loud for someone to remember it mattered. I was sitting in the living room, focused on finishing a draft design for a new client. The late afternoon light filtered through the large windows, softening the whole space. I liked this kind of quiet. At the very least, it helped me forget, if only for a while, the cold words I had heard over the past few days. The door opened. Liam walked in. Not a glance in my direction. Not a single word of greeting. Just one sentence, delivered like an order. The 15-year anniversary is coming up. Let's keep it simple this year. Go pick up a few things from the store and cook something. I'll invite a few friends over. I looked up at him, not sure I had heard him right. But it was you who suggested we do something special last year. You said you wanted a quiet dinner on the beach, just the two of us, watching the sunset. Don't you remember? He cut me off immediately, his tone as casual as if he were talking about taking out the trash. Celebrate what? 15 years of listening to a woman nag? I'm tired of it. Just do what I said. I tightened my grip on the pen in my hand. I didn't want to argue. but I couldn't stay silent. "Liam, what's going on with you? You've changed. You're not the man who used to hold me every night. You're not the one who would rest his hand on my back when I was exhausted and tell me I was doing great. We need to talk, honestly." He turned around. This time, there was no anger in his eyes, only coldness, as if I were a stranger disturbing him. "Talk? You think there's anything left to talk about? All you ever care about is your work, those lifeless drawings. Who do you think you are? Some kind of independent feminist? That's laughable. Without me, you're just another nameless designer no one's ever heard of." He turned and walked toward the bedroom. I didn't call after him. I didn't reach out. I just sat there and watched his figure disappear. Everything inside me felt tangled and tight, like a knot I couldn't undo. I looked at the unfinished sketch in front of me. Those lines used to bring me joy. They used to be something he was proud of. I closed my eyes. A sharp ache bloomed in my chest, tugging at a distant memory. I remembered 5 years ago. It was a late afternoon just like this. I was sketching. Liam came up behind me, wrapped both arms around me, and held me close, as if trying to fill me with his faith. He whispered in my ear that I was the most talented designer he had ever met, that my gallery would succeed one day, that he believed in me. I had smiled, resting my head on his shoulder, and told him that it was because he stood by me that I dared to go this far. The image shattered the moment I opened my eyes. I whispered to myself, asking a question no one could answer. "What happened to you? Since your company went bankrupt last year, you haven't been the Liam I once knew." I remembered last year when I went into the study to print out a new color palette for a project. As I opened the tray, a receipt slipped out. The paper was thin and light, yet it felt so heavy I could hardly breathe. I picked it up and read every line carefully. The very first words were clear. The sky view. Dinner for 2. The date matched perfectly with our anniversary. I froze, my eyes fixed on the numbers and the restaurant address. I no longer had to guess. Every missing piece had fallen into place. The late nights, the sharp words, the unexplained expenses. I whispered, so softly it felt like I was speaking only to the ache inside me. "You didn't just betray me. You tried to deceive me so openly. You planned to celebrate our wedding anniversary with another woman?" I sank into the chair. My hands hung limp at my sides. My mind was blank. I used to ask myself if maybe I was exaggerating, if maybe I was being too sensitive. But now, this receipt, printed by the very machine in this house, had spoken for itself. I no longer felt sad. I only felt my heart burning like fire. "Liam, you tore my heart apart with your cold words. You think I am just a puppet, obedient and silent, enduring all your insults? You were wrong. Very wrong. If you want to play a dirty game, then I will be the one to write the rules. And I can promise you, you will not like the outcome." I stood up, walked to the desk, and picked up my phone. I pulled up Jenna's name and pressed call. She was the only one I needed to talk to right now. I was no longer trembling. I was no longer unsure. My voice was low, steady, and firm. "Jenna, I need to see you. Right now. Liam. He is no longer the man I once loved, and I need a plan." I arrived at Jenna's office just before 8 in the evening. Outside, the air was colder than usual. The chill seemed to sink right into my chest. She was sitting at her desk, and her eyes turned serious the moment she saw me walk in. I didn't have time for small talk. I told her everything, every detail. I held nothing back. Jenna sat in silence as I spoke. When I finished, she let out a deep breath and tapped her hand lightly on the wooden desk. I told you long ago. That bastard is nothing but an empty shell, feeding off a shiny image. But this isn't the time to cry. This is the time to act. I looked up at her. My voice was dry, but inside me was a storm rising fast. And how exactly do we act? Hire a private investigator? Get a few grainy photos taken from some street corner? I don't want a scandal. I want something solid. A strike. A hit that will knock him down for good. Jenna looked at me. Slowly, her eyes shifted into the kind of stare people get when a bold idea sparks to life. If you want him finished, then we don't follow him. We lead him. We lay a trap he won't be able to resist. And we hold the strings. I frowned. I needed to understand every move. What do you mean? What kind of trap? Jenna smiled. It was sharp and calculated. We'll give him exactly what he's craving. A young woman. Beautiful. Innocent. But she won't be his prize. She'll be working for us. She'll pull him in, make him believe he has it all. And then she'll record every word he says. Every promise. Every plan to leave you. Every scheme to steal what's yours. I sat in silence for a few seconds. Then I asked carefully, "This sounds risky. Where are we supposed to find someone like that?" Jenna had already opened her laptop before I even finished the question. "I know a girl. Her name is Skylar. She's a dancer. Smart. Clear-headed. Most importantly, she hates men who cheat. She was once the victim of someone exactly like Liam, and right now, she needs money. Her mother is sick." We met Skylar at a small cafe tucked away on a quiet street. Jenna gave a brief introduction, then left the two of us to look each other in the eye. Skylar's eyes were bright, but sharp like a blade. She reached out and shook my hand firmly. "Jenna has told me everything. I'm truly sorry for what you're going through, and I'm ready to help." I nodded, but I couldn't hide the doubt in my voice. "You know this isn't some act on a stage, right? Liam's not stupid. He has instincts." Skylar smiled, calm and light, but there was something solid in her voice. "I know, and I'm not some naive girl. I won't let emotions ruin this. I see it as a contract, and I always fulfill my contracts." Jenna spoke then, her voice low and steady. "Skylar isn't just a dancer. She once got caught up with a man exactly like Liam. He promised to leave his wife, promised her an apartment, promised everything, then blamed it all on her when it came crashing down. And his wife, like so many others, believed him." Skylar looked at me. This time, her eyes weren't cold. They were bitter. I lost my job, my dignity, and my faith in myself. That man used his wife's money to buy me everything. And when it all came out, I was branded a gold digger, a homewrecker. She paused for a moment, then looked me straight in the eye. "When Jenna told me your story, I saw myself in it. The cheap promises, the hidden expenses. I know exactly how men like that think, how they move, and how confident they become when they believe they're the ones in control." I was silent for a while before asking, "So this isn't just a contract for you?" Skylar nodded. "This is revenge, not just for me, but for every woman who's ever been lied to. I want to prove that we, as women, can come together, can fight back, and can win." Jenna then placed an envelope on the table and slid it gently toward Skylar. "This is 50% of the agreed amount. The rest, plus a bonus, will be paid once you secure solid evidence. That includes verbal statements, transactions, and anything that shows he's planning to take control of the apartment." She also handed over a small voice recorder and a hidden camera embedded in a hair clip. "Your task is to approach him at the high-end gym he frequents. Let everything unfold naturally. Make him believe you're his dream woman. And when he starts talking about wanting freedom, wanting a divorce, wanting the apartment back, get him to say as much as possible. Skylar took everything without hesitation. Her face was calm, almost unnervingly so. I understand. With my background in psychology, I know exactly how to make a man like him think he's the one in control. I'll make him believe I'm completely on his side. I asked one last thing, slowly. It was something I truly feared. Skylar, please, don't actually fall for him. She looked straight into my eyes. Her gaze didn't flinch. Maya, to me, he's just a target. Love is a luxury, and men like him don't deserve it. I've learned that lesson through blood and tears. She smiled. A smile sharp as a blade, but not fake. It was real. Don't worry. I know how to make a man fall without ever giving him my heart. It's my survival skill. And now, I'll use it on the right man, at the right time. 3 days later, Skylar texted to say she had made contact. I sat in front of the screen, waiting for the hidden camera footage to load. The moment it did, my breath caught. Liam was at the luxury gym, chatting with a friend. He looked relaxed and full of himself, laughing loudly and gesturing toward a sports car parked outside like it was some grand trophy. Skylar entered a moment later. She wore a sleek black workout outfit, modest enough to be tasteful, but fitted enough to turn heads. She walked past them quickly, pretending not to notice, then accidentally dropped her bag right in front of Liam. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Liam turned around immediately. The second his eyes landed on her face, I knew he'd taken the bait. It's all right. Let me help you. She crouched down, her hand brushing his as they picked up her things together. I think I recognize you. Aren't you the guy who speaks at those charity events for the business club? I saw one of your talks online. It was really impressive. Liam straightened up, beaming like someone who'd just been flattered in exactly the right way. Haha, yeah, that's me. I'm Liam. What's your name? Skylar. I just moved to the city a few weeks ago. I really admire men who are successful and still care about giving back. Not like, some people who only chase money and forget how to value what they already have. Liam's expression softened. His voice dropped a little, like he was sharing something personal. I know exactly what you mean. At home, I live with someone just like that, always working, always talking about money. No softness, no listening. Skylar gently placed her hand over his, tilting her head with a look of quiet understanding. I'm sorry for saying this, but I think you deserve more. A man like you shouldn't feel alone in his own home. Liam went quiet for a moment. Then he gave a soft laugh and turned to ask Skylar if she wanted to train together. And in that moment, I knew. The game had begun. That night, the three of us got on a video call. Me, Jenna, and Skylar. Her face came into focus clearly on the screen. He took the bait. Easier than I expected. He's invited me to dinner on Friday, and today, he already started complaining about his dry, boring wife. I didn't say a word. Jenna spoke first. What exactly did he say? Skylar looked at me, then slowed her voice. He said you were a burden, that you didn't understand him, that he's trying to find a way to be free. His exact words were, that apartment should have been mine. She didn't earn a damn thing. I clenched my fists. My throat tightened as I asked, he really said that? Even though he knows it came from my mother's inheritance? Jenna's tone hardened, almost like a command. Skylar. Keep going. Try to lead him into giving more details. What's his plan? When? Where? How? Every detail matters. Skylar nodded, jotting something down in her notebook. I understand. I'll pretend I'm worried he might lose everything in the divorce. I want to see how he reacts when I act afraid. He'll try to reassure me, with promises, with plans. I'll record everything. The call ended. The screen went dark. I stayed in my seat, staring into nothing. My eyes landed on the wedding photo on my desk. I picked it up, looked at it one last time. Then I flipped it face down. Liam, your words cut deeper than any blade. But go ahead, keep talking. The more you say, the deeper you dig your own grave. You have no idea. That pretty little muse of yours is actually death in disguise. And me? I can hardly wait to watch you smash the mask of decency you've worn for so long. Skylar texted me to say that Liam had officially invited her to dinner. The location was the Skyview, the same restaurant where he once took his mistress on our wedding anniversary last year. Everything was happening exactly as Jenna and I had expected. And now, it was time for him to reveal who he really was. I sat in my apartment, eyes locked on the laptop screen. Skylar had already put on the recording device. Every sound at their table was being transmitted back in real time. I couldn't see Liam's face, but his voice came through clearly. Each word struck like a blade, cutting through layers of memories I had tried to bury. You know, meeting you feels like a breath of fresh air. At home, all I ever hear are complaints. Work, money, the same things over and over. I'm just tired. Skylar lowered her eyes. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. Please don't say that. I'm sure she has her own stress you might not fully understand. But honestly, I think you deserve much more appreciation. I could picture Liam's face at that moment. He was probably smiling, wearing that smug look of his. Appreciation? She treats me like an ATM. That penthouse apartment? She acts like it belongs to both of us. I paid for every bit of it. She didn't contribute a single dollar. I sat still. My hands didn't tremble, but my throat tightened. He had started making things up. Skylar stayed in character. She pretended to be worried. Her voice sounded hesitant, full of concern. But if you really leave her, won't you lose everything? I've heard the law usually sides with women. I just don't want you to get hurt in all this. Liam let out a quiet laugh. I heard the soft clink of his glass against the table. Then he lowered his voice, like he was sharing some important secret with a new lover. I already have a plan. Before the anniversary, I'll move all the joint savings into a private account. As for the apartment, I have proof she didn't contribute anything. I'll make sure she walks away with nothing. I paused the recording. I didn't need to hear anymore. There it was. His confession. Clear. Word for word. And he had no idea he had just signed his own sentence. I called Jenna over that same evening. When she arrived, I played the recording again so we could listen to it together. We sat at my desk. The light in the room was soft. Jenna clenched her jaw the moment Liam started lying about the apartment. What a bastard. Lying straight through his teeth. That place was paid for entirely with your inheritance. He didn't put in a single cent. I remember every document you asked me to draft when you bought it. I let out a quiet laugh, not even angry anymore. Let him talk. The more he says, the more he condemns himself. Skylar's done even better than I expected. Just then, my phone rang. It was Skylar. I put her on speaker so Jenna could hear. Maya, I had to call right away. He just sent me $5,000. Said it was to buy a handbag. But I checked. It came from your joint account. I wasn't surprised. I spoke slowly, calmly, like I was commenting on the weather. Take it, Skylar, and make sure to save every transaction. Screenshot the statements. Record the time. This is evidence that he's transferring money secretly, deliberately, and in a pattern. Skylar replied in a clear, firm voice. Understood. I won't miss a single detail. The call ended. I set my phone down on the table. The room was still tense, like a string pulled too tight. But inside me, something else had started to rise. It wasn't pain anymore, or anger. It was control. Liam, you think you're the one pulling the strings in this game. But the truth is, You're the puppet. We arranged for Skylar to meet Liam at a quiet upscale bar. This was their third meeting in less than 2 weeks. I already knew what was about to happen, but as I sat there watching the screen, each moment and every line between them made my chest tighten. Liam ordered 2 glasses of wine. He leaned back in his seat, smiling at Skylar with that possessive look of his. You really are someone who makes me feel at ease. No drama, no pressure, not like at home. Skylar lowered her gaze, letting a silence settle as if she were torn inside. Then she spoke gently. Liam, I really do like you, but I'm scared. I'm afraid I'm just the other woman. And that in the end, you'll still go back to your wife. Liam laughed and raised his glass, like he was making some grand declaration. Don't worry. Just wait until after the anniversary dinner. I'll end things with her in front of everyone. I want them all to see who she really is. Skylar leaned in a little closer, her voice curious. What will you say about her? Liam lowered his voice as he poured more wine for them both. Then he answered with a calmness that chilled me. I'll say she's a terrible wife, that she never takes care of me, that all she does is bury herself in work. I need someone younger, someone who listens, someone who appreciates a man the way you do. I gripped the arm of my chair. My hands were tight, but I said nothing. I knew every single word was being recorded. And those words would be what finally tore down the perfect image he had tried so hard to create. 2 days later, Skylar met with me and Jenna at the law office. She walked in without saying much and handed me a small USB drive. Her eyes were serious. There was no trace left of the sweet girl from the other day. This contains a recording of him admitting that he's planning to mortgage the apartment to get investment capital. And he clearly says he'll kick you out before the anniversary. I plugged the USB into my computer and opened the first file. The audio was crystal clear. His voice came through. That apartment is worth over $3 million. If I can get it mortgaged, I'll have enough to start over. And don't worry, I've figured out a way to get her to sign the paperwork without suspecting a thing. Jenna sat beside me, flipping quickly through the printed documents I had prepared. She listened while taking notes. When the recording ended, she nodded. Perfect. With this evidence, not only will he lose everything in the divorce, but he could also be charged with marital asset fraud. She paused for a moment, then turned to Skylar with an expression of genuine respect. You're really good at this. How did you get him to reveal everything so easily? Skylar smiled, not arrogantly, just with the calm confidence of someone who understands human nature. It's thanks to my psychology background. Liam is the kind of man who's full of pride and constantly needs to prove himself. I just played the part of the girl who admired him, showed a little concern about the future, and let him fill in the blanks. He thought he was in control, so he laid out his entire plan without hesitation. She turned to me. Her voice remained steady, but her eyes were sharp. He even bragged that he studied the law and found a loophole. If he can prove that you didn't contribute financially to the apartment, he thinks he can claim the whole thing for himself. I looked at Skylar for a long moment before I spoke. It's ironic. He has no idea that the sweet girl he trusts is actually the weapon that will bring him down. I paused. My voice softened. Thank you. But there's one more thing that's very important. Skylar nodded immediately, as if she already knew what I was going to say. I understand. You need clearer proof that he's trying to take the apartment. He's still holding back some details, but I've already planted the seed. I told him I was worried he'd be left with nothing if he got a divorce. He didn't deny it. Instead, he tried to reassure me. Next time, I'll push him to lay it all out. Jenna laced her fingers together. Her voice was steady and deliberate. Psychologically, he'll try to keep Skylar close by opening up more. The more he tries to win her over, the more he'll reveal. Skylar nodded again and pulled a small device from her bag. This is my new tool. It's a pen recorder that can run continuously for 48 hours. I'll keep it on me at all times. He won't suspect a thing. Every conversation will be saved. I looked at Skylar and, for the first time, truly felt grateful. Not just for her intelligence, but for her courage. You've shown me something. Sometimes, the smartest way to win is to give your enemy exactly what he wants, but on your own terms. One evening, Skylar messaged me that Liam had asked to meet her at the Regent, a hotel he always called the playground of the elite. She said he had been drinking heavily and his words were slipping out of his control. We were ready. The recording device was switched on. I sat in my apartment with my headphones pressed to my ears. Every word came through clearly. I felt as if I were in that room, witnessing everything myself. Love? What if Maya refuses to leave the apartment? The law will protect her, won't it? Skylar asked the question in a hesitant voice, as if truly worried. I knew she was acting perfectly. Liam was silent for a moment, then he laughed. The burst of laughter into my headphones made the hairs on my arms stand up. The law? I hired the best lawyer in the city. I have the evidence ready. Don't worry. Skylar kept the rhythm, leaning in closer, her voice still soft. But what if she refuses to go? She could drag things out, hire another lawyer. Liam laughed again, this time without any mockery. His voice dropped, roughened by drink. If she will not leave willingly, I will hire people to persuade her. Money is no object. The important thing is that she understands. I closed my eyes. Something inside me went cold. It was not shock. It was the recognition that he had crossed the final line. He was no longer just a traitor. He was someone willing to use violence to get what he wanted. Early the next morning, I asked Jenna to come to the apartment. My hands no longer shook. I pressed play on the audio recording like I was completing a routine office task. Jenna sat down. When it reached the part where he said he'd hire someone to persuade me, she looked up. Her eyes were sharp as blades. I didn't think he'd sink this low. Threatening violence against his own wife. Are you still thinking of giving him any more chances? I looked her straight in the eye. My voice was calm, like I was reading a contract. This is enough. We have everything we need. First, the plan to steal marital property. Second, the blatant lies about how the apartment was purchased. Third, the secret transfers from our joint account. And now, a threat of violence. No lawyer is going to clean that up for him. Jenna nodded and picked up her phone to open the calendar. All that's left is the anniversary. Everything is in place. I didn't answer. I walked to my desk, opened a drawer, and picked up the black USB drive. It held everything, every lie, every scheme, every time he dug his own grave. I closed my hand around it. Liam, you thought you were the one pulling the strings. You thought Skylar was your prize. You had no idea you've been dancing to music I composed. You didn't know that every lie you told has already fallen neatly into the palm of my hand. And at the anniversary party, I'll give it all back to you. With interest. I pressed my lips together. Not to hold back anger, but to contain a smile I never thought I could wear with such calm. The final meeting before the big night took place in Jenna's office. The room was bright, with glass walls and a long wooden table. But today, it no longer carried the sterile chill of professionalism. It smelled of tension, of resolve, of the thin line between truth and revenge. Jenna placed a folder on the table. Her voice was firm as she spoke first. We have all the evidence we need. Now it's time to finalize the plan for the anniversary night. We cannot afford a single mistake. Skylar sat across from her, her expression serious. Liam just confirmed with me that he'll be making his speech at exactly 9 o'clock. He even hired a private MC and told him to make sure the mic works perfectly. Looks like he's really looking forward to his final performance. I smiled, but it wasn't joy or mockery. It was the kind of smile you give when watching a man walk into a furnace, still thinking he's stepping onto a stage. Fine. Let him have the perfect stage for his own downfall. Jenna pulled the outline to the center of the table. She pointed to each item with the precision of a strategist reviewing the battle map before the war. Here's what will happen. First, Liam will make his speech, just as he planned. He'll say all the insulting things, the demeaning comments, the passive-aggressive jabs. Second, the moment he finishes, you'll step forward and ask to say a few words. Third, I've already installed the projector. We'll play a carefully edited set of audio clips, along with records of his secret transfers from the joint account. Fourth, Skylar, you'll appear at the right moment to confirm everything publicly. I nodded. My voice was calm, but resolute. I've also printed all legal documents proving the apartment is under my name. It's separate property, purchased before the marriage. I'll distribute them to all the guests after the presentation. We fell silent for a few seconds. All three of us knew this night wouldn't just be a reveal. It would be the end. That night, when it was just the two of us in the apartment, I began my part. A necessary performance to make him fully believe I was still naive, weak, and easy to control. I stood in the kitchen, eyes red, making sure Liam could see clearly. Liam, I don't understand why you've been so distant lately. Did I do something wrong? He was pouring himself a drink, answering without even turning around. You're always like this. Always so emotional, so dependent. I need a woman who's strong, someone who can stand beside her man, not someone who just cries all the time. I straightened my shoulders, took a quiet breath, and stepped a little closer to him. But I love you. I really do. I can change for you. We could try again, couldn't we? He finally turned to face me, his eyes holding a trace of pity, but his voice remained flat and dismissive. It's too late, Maya. Some things just go past the point of no return. Sometimes you need to know when to let go. You should start preparing yourself for what's coming. I lowered my head, my voice trembling slightly. I understand. I'll try to accept it. Then I turned away, just enough to hide the faint smile tugging at the corner of my lips. And in my mind, there was only one thought. Keep playing your little game, Liam. The more confident you get, the easier it will be to bring you down. I sat alone in the small office, the light from the desk lamp casting a soft glow over the folder in front of me. Every page, every bank statement, every logged transaction was undeniable proof. It wasn't paranoia. It was experience. I'd been betrayed enough times to know that caution is the sharpest weapon once trust has been shattered. The phone rang. I pressed the button to answer. Jenna's voice came through, clear and steady. I just got the report from the investigator. Liam transferred the last of the joint account into his personal one. He still thinks you have no idea. I replied with quiet calm. Let him. I've backed up everything. Every dollar he sneaks away is another legal chain wrapping tighter around him. A message from Skylar popped up right after. Maya, he just bought me a $10,000 necklace. Top-tier brand. Should I take it? I replied instantly. Take it, but keep the receipt. Every gift he buys you is just another stone paving the road to his own downfall. The next morning, as I was brewing tea in the living room, Liam walked in with a bright face and a hint of smugness. He looked at me like he was certain I had nothing left to fight with. Maya, tomorrow will be an important day for both of us. I hope you'll be brave enough to face the truth." I looked up at him, eyes wide like I was truly confused. "What truth? Are you planning something special for me?" He gave me that smile I knew all too well, the one that never failed to make my skin crawl. "Very special. Tomorrow is a day you'll never forget." I lowered my head to hide the expression on my face. My voice softened, as if I were genuinely touched. "I think so too. Tomorrow will be unforgettable." But what I felt inside wasn't fear. It was anticipation. That afternoon, Jenna and I arrived at the hotel where the party would be held. The space was elegant, with crystal chandeliers above, red carpet rolling out beneath our feet, and a stage already in place. On the surface, it looked like a night made for celebration, but both of us knew it would be the stage for a reckoning. Jenna pointed to the podium. "That's where he'll be speaking." I had an extra projector installed. As soon as you give the signal, everything will go live. I slowly scanned the room, taking in every detail. The camera angles, the rows of tables, the stage lighting. Everything looked set. And the cameraman? Is H ready? Jenna gave a confident nod. "He'll be there as the hotel's photographer. The entire room will be recorded. Every word, every reaction." I let out a quiet breath, the kind you release when every piece is in place on the final board. 15 years. And now, it all led to this. Every memory, every embrace, every "I love you." Looking back now, all I could see was a long thread of betrayal and manipulation. But I didn't feel hurt anymore. What I felt was freedom. I wore a simple black dress, elegant in its minimalism. My hair was pinned up, my lips painted a deep wine red. My face showed nothing, but inside, every heartbeat was a silent countdown. Liam stood beside me, holding my hand with theatrical affection. He beamed under the lights, speaking loudly into the microphone like everything about tonight was part of a script he had written. "Thank you to all our friends, family, and colleagues for being here to celebrate with us. 15 years. Not a long journey, but long enough to learn a lot. Marriage is a journey, after all." Polite laughter rippled through the room. Some guests nodded, lifting their glasses. His mother, Eleanor, stepped up beside us. Smiling at the crowd, she leaned in toward a few guests, her voice sweet like honey as she whispered to each one. "My son is remarkable, isn't he? Always full of surprises. Any woman lucky enough to marry him should count her blessings." I turned to Liam with a calm smile and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "You're right, my love. The real surprise is just about to begin." Exactly at 8, just as we planned, Liam stepped onto the stage. The spotlight lit up his face. The entire room fell silent. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations ended mid-sentence. He held the microphone with the air of someone convinced he had complete control. "Good evening, everyone. Tonight marks 15 years of marriage. And there's something I need to say. 15 years ago, I made a mistake." The crowd began to murmur, a subtle tension spreading across the room. I thought marriage was about sacrifice, but really, it became a weight. A burden I've carried for far too long. I didn't react. I simply watched him from the table, composed, as if I were just another guest hearing a story that had nothing to do with me. His voice grew louder, the performance more dramatic with every word. That woman believed the world revolved around her. She stopped caring, stopped showing up, buried herself in work, forgot how to be a wife. I was waiting for a partner. What I got was disappointment. What I need now is someone young, someone who listens, someone who actually wants to be present. There was a wave of whispers. A man near the front stood up, visibly upset. "Liam, what are you talking about?" "That's your wife. She helped you build everything. Are you really doing this? Liam smiled, the kind of smile that chilled the air. It's done. Maya, I hope you're listening. 15 years is long enough. Tomorrow, I want you out of the apartment. I'm ready to start over, with someone new. I remained seated, but no one else in the room could stay still. Faces turned in disbelief. Some shook their heads, a few sighed, and then I stood up. I walked toward the stage with a calm that didn't seem human. Every eye followed me. A woman publicly humiliated by her husband in front of hundreds. But no one saw tears. No one saw me tremble. I reached him, took the microphone from his hand slowly, deliberately. He didn't even react in time before I turned to face the crowd. Thank you, Liam. Thank you for sharing your version of the truth. But since we're speaking of truth, let me offer the full one. I gave a quiet signal. The stage lights flickered. Then the screen behind us lit up. I looked out over the audience, my voice clear and composed, as if I were delivering a presentation, not an exposé. What you're about to hear is what the man you've just applauded has been doing behind my back for months. A recording played through the speakers. Liam's voice, sharp and unmistakable, filled the room. That apartment should have been mine. She didn't earn a dime. I'll make sure she walks away with nothing. The crowd stirred. Whispers spread like wildfire. Mouths hung open. I glanced at Liam. He had gone pale. His hands trembled. His lips moved, but no words came out. I held the mic steady, my tone calm. In reality, the apartment was purchased entirely with inheritance money from my mother. These are the documents to prove it. I held up a folder. Each page appeared clearly on the big screen. The murmurs grew louder. Whispers turned into a low, buzzing rumble. Then the next slide appeared, showing clear screenshots of the bank transfers. I kept my gaze steady on the crowd, my voice unwavering. And this is how my loyal husband spent our shared funds. In just 2 months, he transferred over $15,000 to buy gifts and jewelry for his mistress. The door at the far end of the room swung open. Skylar walked in, poised in an elegant dress, every head turned toward her. She made her way to the stage, took the mic, and spoke clearly. I'm Skylar, the young lover Liam has been bragging about. But the truth is, I was hired by Maya. The room erupted, chairs scraped, gasps filled the air. Liam stood frozen, his face drained of all color. Skylar looked directly at the crowd and went on. My job was to document every one of Liam's schemes. And this is the last thing he said. The final recording played, echoing through the heavy silence. If she doesn't leave on her own, I'll pay someone to make it happen. Money isn't an issue. She just needs to be taught a lesson. The room exploded. Mrs. Eleanor shouted, her voice trembling. My son! How could you be this foolish? Liam lunged toward me, his face flushed red, eyes wild. You insane bitch! You set me up! I stepped back, calm and cold, my voice cutting through the noise. Stop right there, Liam. This entire event has been recorded. Every piece of evidence is in the hands of my lawyer. If you lay one finger on me in front of all these witnesses, it's assault. He froze, his whole body trembling. I turned to face the entire room, took a breath, then spoke slowly, letting each word land with weight. I'm sorry that all of you had to witness this. But sometimes, the truth demands to be seen. I am no longer the quiet, obedient wife. I am Maya, and I will claim justice for myself. I turned to Liam, looked him straight in the eyes one last time. You want freedom? Fine, but you'll leave my life with nothing. The apartment, the assets, every single thing belongs to me, and this evidence will follow you for the rest of your life. I lowered the microphone. The air in the room was thick. faces filled with shock, eyes brimming with judgment and disbelief. Liam stood motionless, shaking, with nothing left to say. Inside me, there was no triumph, no gloating, only an overwhelming sense of release. Tonight, a new Maya was born, and I walked off the stage, leaving behind the chaos and a completely shattered Liam. The moment I stepped off the stage, chaos erupted backstage. The hotel manager was rushing to direct security, guests clustered together in hushed but frantic conversation, and phones flashed from every corner. At the center of that whirlwind stood Liam, surrounded by a storm of judgment. I didn't go to him. I stayed behind the curtain, watching quietly. I spotted Eleanor from across the room, his mother weaving briskly through the crowd. Her face was pale, the powder of her makeup suddenly stark against the shock that drained her expression. But her hand was fast, sharp, and deliberate. She slapped him. The sound cracked through the hallway like a gavel striking stone. "You fool! You've ruined everything! Do you have any idea what you've done to this family's name?" Liam held his face, eyes reddened, mumbling, "Mom, She grabbed his shoulder, her voice piercing like a needle. Silence. "I spent years building your image, grooming you, paying journalists to sing your praises, crafting every connection, every step of your path. And in 5 minutes on stage, you burned it all down." She drew in a breath, looked him in the eye, and finished. "From this moment on, you are no longer my son." Then she turned and walked away. Her heels echoed down the marble corridor like the final judgment. Liam remained frozen, alone in the middle of the crowd, drowning in their stares and silent condemnation. I thought that was the end, but I was wrong. Skylar stepped forward with quiet, deliberate steps, the kind that belonged to someone who had just completed a mission and knew it. In her hand was a velvet box. Inside was the necklace Liam once gave her. She stopped in front of him, opened the box, took out the necklace, and tossed it toward him without hesitation. "Keep your cheap little gift. I don't need it!" Liam shouted, his voice cracking with fury. "Traitor, you're just another lying woman, just like my wife." Skylar didn't flinch. She simply smiled, not with pride, not with spite, just a calm, knowing smile. "I didn't betray anyone. I stayed loyal to the one who paid me, and that wasn't you. It was Maya." She tilted her head slightly, her voice sharp and steady. "You think you're smart? No, you're arrogant, easy to manipulate. You were never a victim in this game. You were a pawn, and you walked into the board on your own, dragging your ego behind you." Skylar turned away without another word. Liam slumped down into his chair like the air had been knocked out of him. I looked at him one last time. There was nothing left of the man I once loved. Just an empty figure, unraveling in a room full of people who finally saw through him. The next day, I was sipping tea in the living room when a new video loaded on my phone screen. It was a clip taken from an office security camera. In the video, Liam's voice came first, short of breath and clearly panicked. "I don't understand. What's going on? Why has the entire company email system been locked? Who revoked my access?" A beat later, his assistant's voice cut in. It was hurried and strained. "Boss, I have to tell you, we just received termination notices from 5 major partners. They don't want to be associated with the company after what happened. And our stock is tanking. Bad news spreads fast." Liam shouted again, his voice rising. "Stabilize things. I'll handle it. The assistant interrupted him. This time, his voice was calm, but firm. "It's too late. I have to be honest. The board held an emergency meeting. They've just voted to terminate your position. You're no longer needed at the company." The line fell quiet. Only a cold, uneven breath remained. Then the sound of something hitting the floor. His phone. I didn't need to see his face to know exactly what it looked like in that moment. Not long after, just as employees were trickling out of the building, the sound of firm footsteps echoed through the company's grand lobby. The police had arrived. Calm, composed, as if they had been waiting all along for the perfect moment to walk in. 2 officers approached Liam, who was sitting slumped against the wall, eyes empty, his suit crumpled like the last shred of his dignity. The older officer pulled out a set of documents and spoke in a steady, unmistakably official voice. "Liam Blackwood, you are under investigation for threatening another person's life and attempting to unlawfully seize marital assets. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court." Liam shot to his feet, panic flickering in his eyes. "No, that was just anger talking. I didn't do anything. There were no actions, just words." "Just words." The second officer stepped in, his tone firm but not aggressive, as he calmly reached for the handcuffs. Those words were recorded. "You explicitly said you would hire someone to pressure your wife. The evidence is clear. Please come with us." Liam didn't resist. He simply stood there as the cuffs clicked into place. They led him through the center of the room, past the silent crowd that had once called him boss, partner, friend. No one spoke up for him. No one tried to stop them. No one stood in his defense anymore. After everything, he ended up in a holding cell. I wasn't there to see it, but Jenna told me what happened. One of Liam's longtime friends called him the following afternoon. The moment Liam picked up, his voice cracked. "Hello, I know this looks really bad, but you believe me, right? I never truly meant to hurt Maya." There was a pause on the other end. Then a calm, steady voice replied. "Liam, I can't believe you've done this. I used to think you were a man of principle. But now, I can't continue being your friend." Liam tried to say something, but the other man cut in. "This is where we end. Goodbye." The long beep that followed was colder than the click of handcuffs. That evening, I sat in my apartment. Not just any apartment. The one he once claimed would be his. Now, it belonged entirely to me. Jenna poured wine into a crystal glass and handed it to me. She sat across from me and smiled gently. "Cheers. You've freed yourself completely. Not just legally, but emotionally too." I raised my glass and tapped it softly against hers. "Thank you for standing with me. Without you and Skylar, I wouldn't have made it this far." Skylar was there too, legs crossed, swirling her wine with one hand. She laughed with ease. Honestly, that was an experience I won't forget anytime soon. And the paycheck? Also unforgettable. We all laughed together. Not the laughter of vengeance, but the kind shared by women who were once broken, now reclaimed their voices. I leaned back in my chair, watching the wine swirl gently in my glass. The faint scent of grapes lingered in the air. A dry note touched my tongue, followed by a subtle sweetness that lingered just long enough to remind me what freedom tastes like. Liam had lost everything: his career, his family, his friends, his reputation. But I didn't feel triumphant. I only felt at peace. Justice had finally found its place. And more importantly, I had proven that no one has the right to trample on someone else's dignity, no matter the cost. I turned toward the window. The city glowed softly beneath the night sky. Life went on, even as one chapter quietly closed behind me, and a new one, calmer and freer, began to unfold. The courtroom was packed that morning. The press wasn't allowed inside, but I knew they were waiting just beyond the doors. I walked in with Jenna, dressed simply but impeccably. I didn't need to do much. The truth had already done the heavy lifting. Liam sat across from me, disheveled and hollow-eyed. There was nothing left of the man who once called himself the pillar of a family. The judge reviewed the documents before him, then looked down at the courtroom with a steady, grave tone. Based on the evidence presented, including financial records, witness testimonies, and recorded conversations, the court rules as follows. The penthouse is declared the sole property of Miss Maya, verified as a premarital asset acquired through inheritance. Mr. Liam is ordered to repay the $15,000 he withdrew unlawfully from the joint account for personal use. Furthermore, Mr. Liam is stripped of any claim to shared assets accumulated during the marriage. Regarding the verbal threats made against Miss Maya's safety, Mr. Liam is sentenced to 6 months probation and 200 hours of community service. Liam shot up from his seat, his voice shaky and frantic. Your Honor, I was just angry when I said those things. I never actually acted on them. I didn't mean to hurt her. I wasn't planning to hire anyone. Jenna, seated calmly beside me, spoke with ice in her voice. That threat was recorded, loud and clear. You don't get to call it a joke and expect the law to laugh with you. I turned to Liam, holding my gaze steady. You really thought it would be that easy, didn't you? That everything would go according to your plan? Now you finally understand what consequences actually look like. 3 months later, there was nothing left of the old Maya. My art gallery opened on a quiet street in Manhattan. It wasn't grand, but it was warm, inviting, and mine. A space I had built from the ground up with my own hands. Skylar arrived early. She wore a light, flowing dress, her hair loose and natural. She no longer looked like the woman who once played the role of a seductress. She had returned to herself. She looked around with a soft smile and said it was beautiful, and that she was truly happy to have played a small part in helping me get here. I pulled her into a hug and held her close. I thanked her. I told her that without her and Jenna, I would never have made it. Then I handed her a thick envelope from my bag. She looked at it, puzzled. She reminded me I had already paid her in full. I smiled and said this wasn't money. It was a full scholarship for her to study arts management. I had contacted the academy, and they loved her profile. I told her she had real potential and should have the chance to grow it. Skylar stood there in silence, her hands trembling just slightly. Then she hugged me again. We didn't say much more. When something is honest and true, there's no need to explain it with words. Late one afternoon, in a quiet little cafe tucked into a familiar old street corner, I agreed to meet Liam. One last time. Not out of longing, but for closure. He sat across from me, hair longer, stubble on his chin. His shirt was wrinkled, his shoes scuffed. The man in front of me was no longer the Liam I once knew. Maya, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I've lost everything. Can you give me another chance? I didn't let him finish. My voice was calm, almost soft, but firm. It's time to stop, Liam. There's no more us. He reached for my hand, his voice trembling like he was about to cry. But I have nothing left. I lost my job. My friends cut ties. Even my mother disowned me. You're all I have now. I pulled my hand away and turned to look out the window. That's the price of the choices you made, Liam. I gave you 15 years. Now it's time I start living for myself. I stood up, paid for my coffee, and walked away. I didn't look back. Behind me, his breathing sounded ragged and broken, the last remnants of a man who once believed he could never lose. Months later, after the sentencing, I heard Liam had begun applying for jobs. Each attempt ended in disappointment. At a small financial firm, he sat across from a hiring manager. He was freshly shaved, his shirt wrinkled, trying hard to look confident. I have 15 years of executive experience. I can manage teams, oversee budgets, expand operations. All I need is a chance. The man across the desk glanced through his file, his eyes betraying caution despite his polite tone. I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood. We cannot hire someone with a criminal record, and certainly not someone with such public notoriety. Liam leaned forward, his voice low and strained. But I've paid my debt. I served my sentence. I only want to start again. The hiring manager cut him off before he could continue. Your anniversary video is everywhere on social media. We cannot take that risk. Reputation is more important than experience. Liam walked out of the office with heavy steps, each one weighed down by the very choices he once carried with pride. Meanwhile, in a very different part of the city, I was cutting the ribbon at the opening of my first exhibition in the new gallery. Applause filled the room. Members of the press were there, and camera flashes lit up the space. I was no longer the woman who had been abandoned. I was Maya, an independent entrepreneur, a free artist, and a woman who had reclaimed her voice. Jenna raised her glass of champagne, her voice ringing with pride. To the strongest woman I know, you deserve every bit of this. I clinked my glass against hers and smiled brightly. Thank you. Without you and Skylar, I wouldn't have made it out of that darkness standing tall. A female journalist approached, microphone in hand. Ms. Maya, from betrayed wife to celebrated businesswoman, what would you say to other women going through something similar? I looked straight into the camera, without hesitation. Always remember this. You are stronger than you think. You were not born to play the victim in anyone else's story. Never let anyone reduce you to a shadow of yourself. Somewhere far from the city, Liam now lived in a rundown rental on the outskirts. There was no air conditioning, no internet, just a rattling fan and a few boxes of instant noodles piled on a chipped table. He sat clutching his phone, hoping for a message from his mother. The screen lit up with a single text. Do not contact me again. I've moved and changed my number. You are a disgrace to this family. His breath caught in his throat. Then he screamed and hurled the phone at the wall. The screen shattered, and for the first time in months, he broke down, not from rage, but from the crushing weight of complete isolation. The next morning, I stood on the gallery balcony, a cup of hot coffee in hand. The sun had just risen. The streets below were still veiled in mist. But inside me, everything was calm and clear. 15 years, finally closed. From the ashes of a broken marriage, I had built a new life. A life where I could be myself. A life where I was respected. A life where I was truly loved. I looked down at the street below, watching people rush into their day. And I knew, from this day on, I no longer carried the weight of what had been. Liam had received exactly what he deserved. As for me, I had found freedom. And that was the greatest victory I would ever know. Life has its own way of being fair. It always gives us a choice, to remain a victim or to become the creator of our own destiny. I chose to rise, to fight, and to overcome. When I look back now, I no longer see pain or bitterness. What I feel is gratitude. Gratitude for the courage that allowed me to step out of the shadows and into a life filled with freedom and dignity. If there is one lesson to remember from my story, let it be this. Never underestimate the strength of a woman who carries both wisdom and self-respect. I smiled, drew in a deep breath, and stepped inside. A new day had begun. It was my day. No shadows beside me, no ghosts behind me. If someone tries to make you feel small, do not shrink. The deeper the wound, the stronger you must stand. The more you are dismissed, the higher you must hold your head. And if Maya's journey touched you, if it awakened something within you, I invite you to share your thoughts. If you feel this story is worth remembering, show it your support. And if you wish to hear more, join us at Revenge Diary, where stories of loss become stories of strength, and where those who once fell learn how to rise again and reclaim their fate. Thank you for being here.